The race for Wenatchee School Board Director, Position 1, has incumbent Laura Jaecks facing Meliesa Tigard, owner of an after-school learning center. Jaecks was first elected to the school board in 2003.
Laura, as a current member of the school board, a lot of people have described that school board as being in turmoil since 3 new members came on. Have things gotten better in recent months or the past year?
Yes, absolutely. Things have improved. The 3 new board members ran collectively on a single platform, and they came in pretty forcefully. And the feeling that I have is that as the time has marched by, we've become more comfortable with each other. The new folks have learned what it really takes to be a school board member, which is a lot more than a person might think from the outside. We do have a new superintendent now, and we're beginning to formulate that working relationship, having him at the helm. So yes, I would say things have improved.
Meliesa, how is it from your perspective as someone challenging an incumbent on the school board? Do you see things as going in the right direction, or do you see a need for change still?
Well, it seems like we've brought in the new superintendent, and things are changing, and we are certainly in a time of flux and change. I can't speak to what everyone's personal experience has been on the board, of course, because I haven't been on the board. But obviously there's been some turmoil in the last couple of years, and I know that what we know for sure is that the kids are best served when the grown-ups aren't fighting with each other. So we want to be for sure that the grown-ups are working together for the kids, and that's how we focus on the mission.
Well, Meliesa, the school board went through a round of budget cuts, and they were often painful. And then they raised the levy, $1.5 million. Could have raised more, but that's what the number they settled on. And now they're looking at another $500,000 or so cuts next year. Do you think they're on the right path with dealing with the budget problems they're having?
Well, the situation is that we have falling enrollment, and we also have some state decisions, as I'm sure you know, that have affected us in having less funding. And that's not anything that we can put blame and say it's one person's fault or another. So we have to look into our community and say, how can we work on this together? So doing the, as they went through the budgeting process, I know that they did take the advice of the financial folks who were in the district, which I think it's always wise to listen to the folks who are the experts. I heard a lot of other numbers thrown out there. Some of them were much higher. I've talked to community members who were interested in having no increases whatsoever and concerned about that, but we do have to provide services for our kids. So we do have to look at our community, and we need to be talking to them about why the situation is what it is, so that there is an understanding in our community of why we're making the budgeting decisions that we are.
Well, Laura, when the McCleary legislative settlement was finished and the new funding formula was approved for school districts, did Wenatchee actually end up with less money overall?
No, Wenatchee ended up with more money overall.
And prior to these budget problems, the district had given its employees pay increases anywhere from 11% to 15%. In hindsight, was that the right thing to do?
Well, hindsight is always 20/20. I won't say that there were mistakes made. I think that historically our district has had a really wonderful working relationship with our Teachers Association, the Wenatchee Education Association, and that's been a good thing. The McCleary decision caused a big political ripple statewide, and pressures were exerted to our local union by the state union, and that played into it. And I will also say that because of the positive working relationship we have had for all these years with our teachers union, our staff has been pretty patient over the years with understanding that sometimes the district has priorities. We always try to treat our people right, to make them feel valued, but they have been pretty great about working with us and not really pushing for big increases And in some sense, it feels to me like they were due a larger increase at that point. Whether or not it was too high, I wouldn't go as far as to say that. The idea of McCleary is that the state was not doing its job of fully funding education, and the fallout from that situation has been very interesting, to say the least.
Well, Meliesa mentioned falling enrollment. I haven't seen the numbers yet for this
Yeah.
year, but there's also a new charter school in the works, which would reduce enrollment more. Do you see the charter school, Pinnacle's Prep, as being a threat to Wenatchee School District or a welcome addition?
Neither. I respect the people that are involved in the formulation of the Pinnacle's charter school. I think they're very bright people. They have been wonderful volunteers, some of them in our district for some period of time. I have had recent conversations with them, and so several of those folks still will have children in the district and will be continuing to be volunteers for us. So I'm glad about that. I would like to continue forward having face-to-face conversations with the leadership at the charter school and our district to see if there are places where we can collaborate financially. The reality is that every FTE or full-time equivalent that leaves our district takes money out of our district, and we have we don't have a lessening obligation to manage facilities, for example. Even if our enrollment goes down a bit, we'll still have 7 elementaries, we'll still have 3 middle schools, we'll still have 2 high schools, we'll still have the Valley Academy and the Wenatchee Valley Technical Skills Center. So it is a little worrisome, and we're going to have to be very careful about how we manage our resources going forward, and hopefully managing the relationship with Pinnacle so that we can have a positive outcome for everyone.
Meliesa, how do you see the charter schools' addition to the educational offerings in Wenatchee?
Well, at the end of the day, where we're at now is that we have a charter school. And so as at the school district, what we need to look at is what is the best solution for us, and how do we move forward. And I have said before that no one is well served by having any kind of negative relationship between us and the charter school. There have been some feelings about the worry about whether we're going to have enough funding, and as Laura was explaining very well, about the student funding that goes with them when they leave. So there is some concern about that on our end. And my feeling on this is that when we move past that, we move to strategy. What do we do next? And my belief is, and I've been working with our families in our community. I've been talking to the parents and the teachers and the kids, and working specifically, a lot of the work that I have done have been with the families when they were frustrated. They were in times in their educational pathway where they had some feelings and they had some concerns. And I feel like I have some really good understanding of why a family would choose to leave and go to Pinnacle's Prep, because of my experience in listening to those families when they were feeling that way. And the best thing that we can do in relation to those families is be sure that we are really listening and being creative with our problem solving, because when a family hears from you as the school, yes, we can solve this, yes, we can work together. When they're hearing those messages, they're feeling good about where they are. And when we are really working with listening to our families and with finding creative solutions that feel right to them, that meet their needs, then there's going to be less of a exodus out to Pinnacle's Prep. And that seems to me like the best way that we can move forward.
Is there any specific ways you can say that the district is not meeting the needs of some students?
Well, I mean, obviously, many of the students that I have worked with over the years are the kind of student that might be more likely to slip through the cracks. So I've worked with children who have ADHD and who have oppositional defiance, or who are on the spectrum. So there's a number of different situations that a family might be in. Also worked with kids who are not coming up to standard, not feeling like mom and dad are concerned about where they're at. I've got students who are trying to make it into the upper math classes. And so what we need to do, let me think about that. When we are working with those families, many of them have situations that might not be easy to fix. And part of this is just about how it is that we are listening to them. I have sometimes been in meetings together with a family and just kind of helped them sort of translate back and forth as to what it was that they were listening or what they were hearing. And a big part of what the family needs is just to be heard. And to know that we're going to come up with solutions that are going to work. And the more that we can give that kind of confidence, especially when we have families who have situations that might be the kinds of kids that might be more likely to fall through the cracks, and they're concerned, there's definitely ways that we can meet their needs. And a lot of that has to do simply with hearing and being flexible in our policies.
Laura, the board has instituted an outreach program where you're going to be meeting with the public on several occasions. And the first one is going to be about facilities. Is that, well, two parts to this actually. Is that in response to the failure of the Wenatchee High School bond issue? And if so, do you have thoughts on why voters did not approve that?
I don't, is it in response to the failure of the bond? I wouldn't say that necessarily, but the fact is that there are improvements that are needed, particularly in Wenatchee High School. Even though it looks like a great, big, beautiful building, there are some deficiencies that are impacting our students' ability to learn effectively in the classrooms. And it's all about the students, really. And we want to know, the board, when I say we, and the district administrative team, want to know how the community is feeling about the facilities. One thing I've heard was that it was too big and fancy. We needed to tone it down, make it more, more utilitarian. And so we're going to be listening to the community. It's really important to me to know what the community is feeling. I think the timing of that bond was bad, given all that was going on with McCleary and the flux of funding and taxpayers concerned about their property tax bills, which is certainly understandable to me. I'm very conscientious about the taxpayers, and I feel for people, when they get those tax bills every year. I'm a homeowner as well, and I want to be conscientious about how we spend our money and what we're asking the community to support. And that harkens back to the recent levy increase that the board chose to implement. It was fundamentally important to me that we did not take our elective levy increase up any higher than what the local voters had previously approved. The combination of the change of increase in the state and the lowering of the local, we are now at the exact same level we were when the local voters approved that. So
Right.
That's really important to me.
Well, Meliesa, do you share those thoughts on the needs for facility improvements in Wenatchee High School and why voters didn't approve that bond measure?
Well, a lot of times, one of the things that we know is a confused mind says no. So when people don't fully understand what it is that you're doing, they're likely to just say no. So that is a conversation where we have to really be talking with our community. As Laura explained very well, we have some issues in the high school, and the high school does need to we need improvements. It's not going to just go away. It is a problem that needs to be solved. So we do need to make some changes now. It was certainly, we had voters who were not ready to do that, didn't like the pictures that were put out there as to what the new high school would look like, had some concerns, and potentially where that goes to is having more of a conversation with the voters ahead of time as to what it is that we need to do in order to solve this, so that when we put a solution out there, it's one that already has a widespread support. So we want to be really clear that we're already listening to our community before we get to the point that we're at a bond.
Okay. I want to thank you both for coming in today, and I appreciate it, and good luck to both of you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.